Well, the actions FBI Director James Comey and his handling of the Hillary Clinton email announcement leading up to Election Day are now under scrutiny.
Comey is under an internal investigation, and it's being carried out by the Justice Department Inspector General.
KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with a look at what is at stake for Comey and, of course, the FBI.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen just about everything with this case so far, so why not investigate the investigators now? You may have thought the Clinton email controversy is ancient history at this point, but the fallout from the federal investigation of her private email server is taking on a life of its own. Tonight, the Justice Department Inspector General announced a new internal investigation of how the case was handled by the FBI and its controversial director. With Hillary Clinton's emails back in the headlines, the Inspector General's internal investigation is expected to answer questions about whether the FBI and Director James Comey acted inappropriately or used bad judgment in handling the case, examining allegations that policies and procedures were not followed by FBI Director James Comey.
This is going to be an unusual statement in at least a couple of ways.
Comey broke with FBI protocol when he announced in July that Clinton was extremely careless in her handling of sensitive national security information, but would not face criminal charges.
We did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws.
But then, just 12 days before the election, Comey informed Congress he had reopened the investigation after agents discovered emails on a laptop used by Clinton aide Huma Abedin that appeared to be pertinent. The Washington Post reports senior Justice Department leaders warned Comey not to send the letter because they said it violated two department policies, publicly revealing an ongoing investigation and taking overt action on an investigation involving a candidate so close to the election. And then 2 days before the election, Director Comey sent a second letter to Congress in which he cleared Clinton again and closed the probe. But Democrats were furious.
I believe that the Comey letter was a foul deed. It was a wrong thing to do. It really just changed everything.
In fact, in testimony by intelligence leaders this week, the issue of how the FBI handled the Clinton case came up again when Director Comey refused to answer a senator's question about whether the FBI was investigating connections between American political parties and Russia.
I would never comment on investigations, whether we have one or not, in an open forum like this. So I really can't answer it one way or another.
That brought this response from Senator Angus King, clearly referring to Comey's handling of the Clinton case.
The irony of your making that statement here, I cannot avoid, but I'll move on.
At the same hearing, California Senator Kamala Harris confronted Comey on the issue more directly.
The new standard that was created over the summer and fall regarding the investigation into Secretary Clinton's email server was that there was a unique public interest. I'm not sure I can think of an issue of more serious public interest than this one. This committee needs to understand what the FBI does and does not know about campaign communications with Russia.
Reacting to today's developments, former Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook pounded on that point.
I don't understand when he has information about Secretary Clinton that he suddenly feels compelled to tell Congress everything he knows. But when it comes to Donald Trump and allegations as serious as treason, that he isn't able to comment at all.
The Inspector General will also look into the handling of two other election-related questions about the FBI investigation, both involving Democrats. He'll determine whether certain officials should have recused themselves in the Clinton investigation and whether non-public information was inappropriately given to Clinton and the media. Now, in a statement late today, Director Comey promised his full support and cooperation with the investigation. This is not a criminal investigation. But if the Inspector General finds some evidence that laws were broken, he could recommend a criminal investigation. That's highly unlikely, though. Nonetheless, this keeps the Clinton email issue alive, and that's certainly not good news for Comey or the FBI, which has already been under fire for quite a while, Lena.